This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I am Bill Marcioni, here today without Carol Lawrence asking questions, and we're going to have an episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast. This is a solo episode with just me. So in this New Thought teaching, we say there is only one, and on this particular episode, in fact, there is only one. There is me. And we talk about different topics of practical prayer and impacts and aspects and ways that it influences life and philosophy and such on a weekly basis on the podcast. In fact, this is episode number 201. So this series of questions has been going on for quite some time. And instead of a particular question, today I want to talk about one of my favorite things, which is the pivot. And the reason that the pivot is important is because that is the active engagement that we get to have with creating a new experience in our lives. So just to go over to the fundamentals of a practical prayer, it's 5 steps, maybe 7, depending on how well the first 3 work for you. And the first step in a practical prayer is recognition. To recognize that there is one infinite creative power, one divine source, one essence that shares itself as all of its creation. There is only one. It is not a duality. It is not a multiplicity. There is one. And the reason that everything in the universe, everything in our experience appears different is because it is individualized or particularized in different forms. So that everything includes me, it includes you, it includes everything we're involved in, everything that has happened up until now, everything that's going on now, and everything that's going to happen in the future. Everything that is in its unfoldment. So the first step in the prayer is to recognize that that's all there is. There is only one. That one is present right here and right now. It is me. It is each of us. It is the sum total of everything that's going on, everything that ever has, and everything that ever will. And once we get that grand, big idea of just exactly how large this creative essence is, we move to the second step, which is unification. And that's where we acknowledge that since there's only this one divine presence, that we must be included in it. All of that goodness that is available anywhere is available within. All of the power, all of the intelligence, all of the love, all of the potential, all of the good, and good is however we describe it, that's available anywhere is available to each of us right now. Unification, understanding that that one is the truth of what we are. We are one with the one. That's the essence of the second step. And once we get ourselves into that mindset of understanding that there is an infinite creative power that creates everything, it's created each of us, and that we're part of that one creative power, the next step is the realization, where we are going to allow that infinite creative power to create something new for and through and as and with us. And it's creating anyway. That infinite creative power is creating anyway. It is guided by the intention of let there be light, or whatever the evolution of the next experience of possibility is. So since it's responding to consciousness, in that third step, that realization step, we are focusing our conscious intention to invite something new into experience. We are taking active part in the creative process that's going on all the time anyway. And that infinite creative power has created everything that we have ever described as good. It has also created everything we have ever described as bad, because good and bad are the ways that we look at things. They're preferences that we have. I like this, I don't like that. I like puppies. I don't like Nazis. And there are a lot of ways of identifying what we consider to be good and what we consider to be bad. And if you think you've cornered the market on what's good and that what you think is good is what everybody thinks it's good, and anybody who disagrees with you somehow is wrong or bad, you have missed the point. Everybody has their own unique perspective. Everybody is coming at it from their own particular direction. So good for one person might be not good for another person. So if there's somebody who's in a dispute, then me getting this particular piece of land would be good. And for the person who's been living on that particular piece of land for a while, me getting that land might not be good. So there is a difference in perspective about what we're inviting in. And it's not like saying, I have to get my way. If it's that situation, there's a dispute over property, over who gets to call a particular place home. It's very easy for us to say either that person gets it or I get it, and that's where the fight comes from. And by going into that first two steps, by acknowledging that there's an infinite creative power, limitless possibilities in this universe, and we're part of it, then instead of looking for me having that particular piece of land, which my ego tells me should be mine or shouldn't be theirs, I open to the possibility that there is a perfect piece of land, a perfect place, a perfect home for me and the other people who are involved. And there's a way that the pieces can fit together somehow that brings good and harmony and uplift and prosperity to me and to everybody involved. So the third step in the prayer is realization, where we are inviting that infinite creative power to create something new for and through and as us. Those are the three that we pay the most attention to, because after we get done with that realization step and we've claimed our good, it's kind of the wrap up. The next thing we want to do is go into a state of gratitude, thankfulness for the good that's unfolding, thankfulness for the awareness of this creative process, thankful to know that we are part of this unfolding. Gratitude can be about anything. It is that feeling of gratitude, thankfulness, which does a couple of things. First of all, it presumes that the good that we have claimed is already ours, because we're already being grateful for it. Second of all, because we are grateful, it is a gratitude to something that's bigger than ourselves. It's not like we've decided that we've muscled our way through this and this is now happening the way that we've decided it's going to happen. This is happening because that infinite creative power is now creating this goodness. Takes us out of our ego, takes us out of the place where we think that we're doing the work ourselves, and reminds us again that we are in partnership with this divine power and presence that's unfolding as this newness. The final step in a practical prayer is the release, where we let this new creative endeavor, this new experience, continue to unfold. It is going to go and have its own existence, and it's going to continue evolving and unfolding and revealing itself in the future. And it doesn't require us to continue thinking about it or pushing on it or some other way, insisting that this good is happening. It's not about willpower. It's about partnership. And that release step is letting the partner take over and do the work. So that's the process in a practical prayer. And I mentioned that those are the 5 steps, and there are a couple of other steps that can happen. If we get to the point where we've gone through steps 1, 2, and 3, where we have identified that infinite creative power and that we are part of it and that we are claiming this goodness for our lives now, if we finish that realization step, and there's a little voice that says, I don't think so. If doubt comes up, I don't think this is possible. Or if that were true, we would have had a different experience. Or any of those other voices of doubt that come up in our minds, any of the ways that we can consider that the goodness that we've claimed is not actually happening. That's revealing to us that there is something more to be done, that we do not believe in the good that we're claiming. At which point we are going to refute that. We're going to look that fact in the face and say, the thought that I don't deserve to have a perfect place to live is not true. It has no power of its own. And once we've refuted that, once we've taken the energy away from that false belief, we claim our good again. In the case of looking for a place to live, I know that I have my perfect home. And everybody involved in this discussion about what's happening with this property is in complete alignment, and everybody is getting exactly what he and she needs. And I repeat that. And if I get the pushback again, then I go through that same process again, that refutation and reaffirmation. And I keep doing that until I don't get any pushback anymore. And then I go on to my gratitude and release steps in the practical prayer. The process of turning away from the experience that we've been having to the experience that we want to be having is the pivot. It's if we're looking into the darkness and we want to be seeing something better, how do we turn to become aware of the light? That's the pivot. We're going to take a break, and I'm going to come back with some details about the pivot in a minute.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marcione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I am Reverend Bill Marcione, flying solo today as Carol takes the week off. We're talking about the pivot. And the pivot is what happens as we are going through the practical prayer process, or in fact, when we're going through any creative process, and we find ourselves face to face with an experience that we don't like. If there's something that's happening and we don't like what's happening and we want to have something different happen, that's the pivot. And the more intentional and aware we can be of the pivot when we're doing it, the more powerful and intentional we can be about the pivot. Ernest Holmes said that we can look a fact in the face and know something better. And that is to acknowledge this is the circumstance as it has appeared to me up until now. This is what I'm seeing. This is what's going on. And I am not giving that power. I can look at that and say, yep, that is the indicator. That is telling me what has been going on so far. That's what I'm looking at in my rearview mirror. And if what I want to see in the future is something different, then I get to head down a different path. I get to choose something different. And if we find ourselves looking into the darkness, and what we're seeing is darkness, and we want to see something different, we need to turn around and look for the light. If I'm looking into the shadows, that means the light is over my shoulders, and the shadow is behind me. So what I need to do is turn around and look to the light. If I am experiencing lack or poverty or financial distress in my life, then if I keep on thinking about the credit cards being overdrawn or maxed out, and the bank account being overdrawn, and that I owe family and friends money, and that there are bills coming due, and it's the first of the month, and I've got this challenge and that challenge. Those things are all facts. And what we get to do is acknowledge that those are the facts, and that is the situation that is presenting itself now. And they need not be the truth, and certainly not the whole truth. We can turn from the facts of the challenge, of the difficulty, of the scarcity and the lack and limitation in our experience. And when we're going to pivot, we're going to look at the spiritual truth. Back to the first two steps of the practical prayer. There is one infinite creative power, one divine presence, one source that is sharing itself as all of creation. So every dollar, every place, every person, every interaction is that one taking its own specific and particular form. God's love is showing up right here and right now as fill in the blank. Everything. It's all that divine power and presence. It's all God. So that divine power and presence is revealing itself right now as me. It's revealing itself right now as this situation that I'm facing. It is revealing itself as the challenge and the opportunity for there to be more funds available to pay expenses. That one is not just showing up as the problem, that one is showing up as the solution. So as we turn away from the problem, we turn toward the solution and invite the good into our lives. And it works in everything. It works in our finances. It works in our health. If we are experiencing a pain or an illness or a difficulty or some sensation, a limitation in our body, if my elbow hurts and all I think about is how much my elbow hurts, then all I'm doing is putting energy and power into my elbow hurting. And what I want to do is pivot. I don't want to pretend that my elbow is fine. What I want to do instead is to acknowledge that there is room for improvement in my elbow and to know that somehow my elbow is returning to a place of comfort and harmony and peace and function and equilibrium, which brings peace of mind to me. And if I've been complaining about it, it brings peace of mind to the people who've been listening to my complaints. I want to turn away from whatever the symptom is, the situation is, and turn toward the good that I'm seeking instead. I hear you say, Bill, that sounds so simple, but it's not really easy to do. And that, in fact, is correct. This is not an easy thing to do. Because a lot of times when we get ourselves caught up in a situation, it might be something about relationships. You know, somebody who goes through a relationship, they meet somebody, they fall head over heels in love, they get smitten and involved in all the lusty beginnings of a relationship, and then it turns sour and goes south and it's horrible and they're facing a horrible relationship. And then it's not just that they're in a horrible relationship or they're dealing with a breakup. There's all those voices telling them this is always what happens to me. I always have relationships that go this badly. I don't deserve to have a good, loving relationship. I don't deserve to have somebody who values me. I don't deserve to have somebody who I can focus all of my love on. And we start worrying about the problem. The thing we want to do instead is pivot. What's the experience I want to have instead? Well, the experience I want to have is I want to have a loving, uplifting, connected relationship. I want to have joy and satisfaction in the person who I'm spending my time with. And I want them to feel wonderful and uplifted about me. And it's possible when we do that there's something we learned early in life, especially if we find that we've been having these patterns in our relationships or our finances or our health, where as soon as something good happens, something bad happens. That means there's a belief hidden in there someplace that's actually the active one. Because that creative law that responds to conscious intention is not responding to what we say. It'd be nice if we could just write out what it is that we want and submit that and have that be what shows up in our lives. It's actually what we believe. So if for some reason we grew up believing that we don't deserve to have enough money to pay the bills, that we are part of a family or a lineage that always struggles with finances, if we learned from our parents that you can't have a wonderful, loving relationship because mom was married 3 times and dad couldn't, et cetera, et cetera. If we learned either through being educated or through our experience or through the culture, the way that we were, just the way that society was set up when we were born, this is the way things always happen, that activates our beliefs. We wind up living out those beliefs. So what we get to do is unearth those and reaffirm for ourselves they don't have any power. That might have been true for somebody else. That might have been the experience that I had before. It is not the truth. The truth that I'm claiming is this new experience. I have plenty of money to spend, to share, and to save. I have a wonderful, loving relationship. My elbow is perfectly comfortable and healthy. Everything is fitting together. I go back to playing golf or tennis or hockey or ping pong or whatever it is that I love doing, writing, with ease and joy. And sometimes as we're going through the process of identifying this is the situation and the circumstance that I don't like, and I'm going to pivot to what it is that I do like, we spin right back around and we find ourselves looking at the shadow again. And we get to do the pivot one more time because it's not true. That experience that we have had up until now, maybe the experience that we've always had and that we're having now, As irresistibly powerful as that might be, it's not the truth, and we get to spin around again. And it is possible to go through the pivot process like a ballerina on point, spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. The important part is don't stop, because if you stop, if you just give up, you're going to wind up pointed in the direction that you were going in before. You'll give up and say, don't deserve that. You do deserve that. All of the good that you can imagine, and good, again, is whatever you describe as good, all of the good that you imagine is available to you. It might not be in the way that you think. It might not be by getting something away from somebody else. It might not be by having a relationship with this particular person, the one who you just saw across the room, or the one that's been waking up in the bed next to you for the last 30 years. Might be something different. As we open to the possibilities, as we let go of our attachment to things being the way that they have been, the way that we learned that they, quote, should be, we open ourselves up to brand new possibilities. That possibility is showing up in a new way in every moment. So as we pivot and we spin back around, we get to learn something. Every time we go through that process, we get to learn something. Because when that voice of doubt shows up in our head saying, this is not you. You don't deserve this. This is not possible for you. We can challenge it. We can take a little air out of those tires and say, the thought that this is not good for me, not available for me, that I don't deserve it is untrue. That's a shadow. That's something that's blocking that divine light of love that's shining everywhere. The thought that it can't show up for me and it can show up for everybody else is impossible. So I'm rejecting that. I'm letting loose that possibility, and I'm turning back to a new possibility that love and good is available to me. And every time we go through the process, we get a little more clarity. That false belief has a little less power. And eventually we're going to stop spinning and settle in to a brand new possibility. Let's take a break, and then we'll conclude with a practical prayer on pivoting to what's new and what's next. Here's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at BeTheLight.com. That's B-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at BeTheLight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class. Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I am Reverend Bill Marchione, and I'm here flying solo as Carol takes the week off. We've been talking today about the pivot, the 5 different steps, or maybe 7, or maybe 9, or maybe 11. It depends on how many times you pivot through. That can be any odd number of steps in a practical prayer. So we've been talking about the steps in a practical prayer, and we've been talking about the pivot, our ability to turn away from the experience that we've been having that we don't like, that we don't prefer, that we don't favor, that we would rather have something different. And we pivot towards the experience that we would like to have instead. So that's the prayer today. And we get to do that prayer on behalf of each one who is within the sound of my voice, knowing that it is always possible to turn away from a situation, a circumstance, or an experience and open to something new. We start by knowing the truth. There is one power and presence, one divine love, one infinite intelligence, one creative force that shares itself as and in and through all of its creation. Everything is that one. Everything, everyone, everywhere is that one divine power and presence. We can take it all the way back to our creation story. In the beginning, there was darkness and void and God. said, "Let there be light," and there was light. That is the intention. Let there be light. And that's the creative law responding, and there is. And the rest of that scripture continues to say, God said, "Let there be," and the law responds, and there is. And if we look at it from the way the quantum physicists say that it happened, there was a singularity that exploded. It began evolving and expanding and interacting upon itself to bring everything that exists into experience. An entire process, 14.2 billion years in the making so far. And part of that creation includes me and each one listening to this prayer. And everything and everyone, every moment, every planet, every particle, every person, every activity, everything is that one infinite presence expressed in its own particular way. We are each that divine essence, right here and right now. The intelligence with which we think is that infinite intelligence, particularized as us. The experiences that we are having are the experiences of the infinite, particularized as us. There is no specific limitation to the experience that we can have, to the possibilities that are available to us. As we turn away from what we think we know, what we've always believed, what we've always experienced, newness is possible. Through the pivot, through that process of turning away, of turning to a new direction, we invite in a new experience. So that's what I'm claiming for each one listening right now. Whatever the experience has been up until now, which is unsatisfactory or not the peak experience that it might be, for any idea, any preference that we have for experience to be different, I now claim that that infinite creative power that creates everything is bringing that newness about. As we open up to the good that is available, that good is unfolding for and through and as us. And the guidance is showing up for each of us. If there is doubt, if there is hesitation, if there is a thought that this good does not belong to me, that doubt is revealed. That disbelief is made known. And each one, within the sound of my voice, is able to pivot, to turn away from that disbelief, from that thought that the good can't possibly be available, to the absolute sure knowing that it's not only available, but it's on the way now. So that's the good that I'm claiming for each of us, for all of us. Good and more good, pressed down and overflowing in ways that go beyond what we could possibly have imagined. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for the loving way that it's showing up. I'm grateful for the willingness of each one here to participate in this process. And I'm grateful to hear the stories about good and more good and more good unfolding, about how harmony is unfolding as the pieces fit together in ways that nobody ever expected. As a dispute turns into a friendship, as a disagreement turns into an opportunity to build something new, as love unfolds. And so with a deep feeling of thanks for all of this good, I speak this word and release it into that creative law, the one that has always been responding, the one that continues to respond, the one that always says yes. It is creating this newness now. And so it is. So it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
Where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.